tell me, how has this show changed? I did not realize that they had changed some parts of it.
Yeah, there are a few adjustments to the script. I can't speak to exactly what the script looked like before, because I'm most familiar with what it's like now, but ever so slightly. The show is essentially the same thing. There's just a few adjustments made uh, to certain moments in the show, certain ways to give certain characters a little more agency, and kind of instead of taking away from people's uh, perceived strength in the show. I guess they made some adjustments in order to keep things in line with our culture and our times.
When you first saw it, how old were you?
I was 17. I was 17. I was a senior in high school. I saw it in 2013 when my older sister took me to go see it in Chicago. And at the time, Nick Rouleau was playing Elder Price, and Ben Platt was playing Elder Cunningham.
Well, did you know much about it before you got into it, or were you
I
like,
knew I knew nothing about it. And I tell people all the time, friends of mine and family, who haven't seen it, before they come, I tell them, don't listen to the album, don't read up about it at all. Just come in cold. That's how I went into the show, and I was floored. I was super impressed with the production, and super impressed with the story, and yeah, so I knew nothing about it.
there was a moment I saw it when it first came out, and I'm sitting on, next to a very wealthy woman. And when a certain point comes in the show early on, I've never seen anybody gasp so heavily. And she got up out of her seat and was like, I am not watching this. This is terrible. And I thought, this is the best thing I've ever seen. This is too good.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
do you see that moment every night? Do you know when people are not aware of what it's all about and they kind of are surprised?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It happens all the time. We get quite a mix of audiences. There'll be tons of people in the house every night that have seen the show multiple times, super fans of the show, right? But there's also people in the audience every night who know nothing about it. So we get those gasps still. There's certain moments in the show too where you can feel that there's some people in the audience who know what's coming, and know that there's somebody next to them that has no idea what's about to happen. But yeah, man, we get those genuine moments of shock out of the audience all the time.
When you were then at 17, were you planning a career in the theater, or was there something else that was like kind of
So at the time when I saw the show, yes, I was planning to go to school, to study musical theater. But it was a newfound love for me. I hadn't really been exposed to musical theater properly until halfway through high school. Um, I had a friend who on my football team who convinced me that I should audition for the musical. He's like, we need more guys. Like, you should come do this. And we did Guys and Dolls my first year, and then my senior year we did Les Mis. And I remember saying to our choir director who directed the musicals, I was like, I wish people still did this. And he said to me, "What?"
they
I said,
do?
"Yeah, I mean, yeah, it would be awesome to like do this like for a career." And he said, "Oh, let me show you." And we sat down, and he pulled up YouTube videos and showed me, modern musical theater. And I felt stupid in the moment because I had no idea. But at the same time, it is a pretty niche form of entertainment, and there's a lot happening in the business, and I was super excited about that. So he helped me, set up some auditions for some schools. And so at the time, yes, I had plans to go into the field, but at the time I wasn't sure whether or not it was something I was going to be really great at. But I figured, I better try. It's something that I really love doing, and I better see if I can make it work. So my older sister told me, she was like, you should go see a Broadway show. And she lived in Chicago at the time, and I was in Wisconsin, not that far. And she said, so come visit me and I'll take you to go see a show. And we saw the Book of Mormon, and like seeing that show like was super pivotal for me, because I remember seeing it and going, I can do that. Like, not that I had the skill set at the time to do it, but I thought like, that's a story I could tell. Like that is something that's, that's a piece of theater that I feel like really resonates with me and like speaks to like the power of, modern American musical theater.
Okay, so then how soon after I am assuming you graduated, right? You got a degree?
Yes.
How
Yes.
soon after did you get then your first show?
Um, Let me see. I had a summer gig already lined up. I was doing like a summer theater in Maine at a resort called Quisisana. And it's like one of those deals where you have a day job. So I like worked on the beach during the day, on Lake Keezer.
And at
and
night,
and then at night, yeah, exactly. um so it was like one of those resorts. So I had that job lined up already, but after I graduated and moved to New York, I think it was about a month that I booked my first job in New York, on Theater Row at the Beckett Theater, um doing a new children's musical called Interstellar Cinderella. But like, I had so much fun doing that show, and that really just got the ball rolling. And then, from there, things just started to pile up.
well, is it true when we hear people say it's impossible to get a job? You can't get a job. They don't want you. You can't get in to be seen. And is that the way it is, or is it a much different way? This is a show actually that needs young people. So a young actor could be seen for this.
Oh
But
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think that there's definitely a lot of people in the business. I'm not going to say that it's not difficult, because it is, and there's a lot of barriers to entry. But I think, like, my philosophy on, um any endeavor that you venture on, what matters is like what you bring to it, right? What's your work ethic like? When things are tough, when you're facing adversity, are you going to, like, keep your head down and keep working? I think the thing that really deters people a lot is the amount of rejection you have to deal with. 90% plus of the things that you're going to audition for, you're not going to book. And are you going to take that personally? Are you going to think that that's a reflection of whether or not you have the talent to do what you want to do? Or are you going to accept that, it's probably something that's out of your control? And decide to keep moving forward. And that's really difficult, especially when you're starting out, when you're young in the business. It's really hard to deal with that kind of rejection, and to be resilient in the face of all of that. So I definitely think that that's, if there are parents out there going, all right, I don't think maybe this is a good idea, that's probably be a good thing. They're trying to be, helpful, and it's a difficult business. So if I was a parent, I would be, scared to, like, send my child off into this field of work. But what I will say is that hard work, at least for me, has always been rewarded. And building a good reputation for yourself as somebody who's very dedicated and committed to the work, I think, has brought me continued success.
where did the pandemic fall in all this? Were you in college when that was on, or was it after that, or where does that play? And
That
does
was a
it
few
feel
years
like
after.
I've got to rethink this? This is not going to work because, you know,
Yeah, I mean, it was a big moment for a lot of people in the business, and I have, close friends who have left, entirely, and moved on to different careers, and I thought that was going to be me. During the pandemic, after a couple months, I realized, like, wow, this is not going to be coming back as quickly as I thought. At the time when everything shut down, I was on tour with Fiddler on the Roof. It was my first national tour, and yeah, right in the middle of it, right in the middle of our contract, all of a sudden we're getting sent home for 2 weeks. And they told us that they were going to bring us back out. And 2 weeks turned into a month, turned into 2 months. And at that point, I was like, man, I can't just like sit around and like hope and pray that this is gonna come back. So I did a bunch of different stuff. I worked for a construction company for a little while, and then I got into corporate recruiting, and I was actually building quite a career, doing finance recruiting. And I moved back to New York, and I was planning on just kind of like having a corporate life, and just like being happy that I was able to find a decently paying career in something that had nothing to do with my degree. But as soon as things started to come back around, I had sent a tape for Anastasia pre-pandemic, and they had reached out to my agent, and they were like, "Hey, we're really interested in Sam. Do you think he could, come in person to this audition?" And I said to my agent, I was like, "Man, I don't know. Like, I kind of like." I kind of feel like I'm done, but you know what? I haven't sung in a while. I haven't, been in an audition room for a while. So I went on my lunch break, and it was the next day that I got a call with an offer.
That's unreal,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, it was crazy. My life got like flipped upside down like very quickly. Yeah.
Well, then when you're, particularly with this show, when you're touring, do you notice people react differently? Can you tell where you are based on the way they respond to something?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually talk about that a lot. Different people from different regions of the country who have different, and cultural values, depending on where we are going to have different reactions to the show. I will say that, generally speaking, all of the reception that we get is very positive and very engaged. But yeah, there's certain parts of the country where people will be a little bit more reserved, and especially considering the content of our show. We notice that there's some places where people will be absolutely loving the show, but afraid to make noise because they're nervous about signaling to the person next to them that they're enjoying some of the comedy. But that's kind of part of the fun too, like I enjoy seeing how people around the country and, around, Canada as well that we've been to, react differently to the show. It makes it the unique and rewarding experience, and gives us something different to play with everywhere we go.
When you are together, I'm assuming that you all talk about when is it going to be made into a movie? And would we be likely to be cast in that movie? Does that come up?
No, honestly, that's never come up. I've never considered that before. If the opportunity did come along and they decided to make a movie out of this, I would absolutely love to be involved. But I also know, this is quite a um uh um yeah, well, like a well-established, like long-running product that where there's a lot of people involved. I feel like, you know, I'm kind of like so far along down the chain that I don't know if I would be somebody that would be considered first, but maybe I could be one of the Mormons in the background.
It could happen. You just never
It-
know, right?
yeah, you never know. You never know.
What is the hardest part for you in doing this show?
The
Is it I
physical.
believe or is it, oh, it's
Oh, like which yeah, I believe is an incredibly challenging piece of music for sure. I'm a big fan of all of the numbers that I get to perform in the show. I think the show is like rock solid from start to finish. I think it's just like jam packed with a lot of great music, a lot of great choreography, a lot of great staging, a lot of great scene work. And so it's like honestly it's difficult to pinpoint one thing that is like particularly far more challenging than the rest, but like as like an overarching thing, it's a huge physical demand, and a huge vocal demand. It's a very 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 challenging role, and that I really don't spend that much time off stage, so I have to be really prepared going into it, far more prepared than I ever have been with any other show that I've done. Our tour director Jen Werner, who's Casey Nicolau's associate, said to me on day one, she said, "This is the hardest thing that you're ever going to do in your career." And I was like,
and it's all
"Oh,
downhill,
okay,
right?
and she was like, no, really, like this is going to be the hardest thing that you ever do. I've worked with tons of people who play Elder Price, multiple productions across the world. Um, and this is like hands down going to be the most difficult thing that you do in your career, 100%." And I was like, wow, okay. And I didn't realize at the time, but she was totally right. There's something to be said about like doing a production for a long period of time, and how that takes a toll on your body, and how you have to learn, new skills in order to like keep yourself healthy and maintain yourself well over time. And I think we're over 460 performances now, since our particular
You've
tour
been
launch.
with it that long?
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
So
Yep.
then after the show, are you just, I don't do anything, I just sit still and that's it? Or
I do as much as I can. I like to socialize with people, but really, especially with this tour, I've been mostly a monk, just kind of like staying on my own, not really talking to anybody too much, or not going out really too much. It's just it's difficult, like I have to. There's a trade-off, right? If I go do something at night, then like tomorrow, it's going to be much more of a challenge, get prepared for the show. So it's a lot of resting for sure. But you know what? Like that it's definitely not a bad thing. I'm not complaining. I feel like this has been like a really great, time in my life. A lot of where I've experienced a lot of personal and a lot of professional growth, just through this process, and I'll be eternally thankful no matter where I go to Elder Price for teaching me that I'm capable of a lot more than I thought I was.
How close are you to him? Are you like him at all?
Well, when I was growing up, my parents were missionaries in Mexico, so I have that missionary experience. We weren't Mormon missionaries, so I don't have the connection to the faith there, but I know what it's like to be in a foreign country, spreading the word of God, and I know what that feels like, and I've also seen, the fallout of that kind of experience, and how that affects the people that you're reaching out to. And I think that there's a lot of that experience that I bring to Elder Price, and it might be more subtle, than than you might than you might think, but I think there's a certain level of understanding that I have for the character, the motivations, and the ultimate downfall that you see in the show. Like it's something that really resonates with me. So yeah, so in that way, I do think I'm very similar to Elder Price. And also, having gone through that experience in my life of being like feeling like so on top of the world, for no reason, like having no legitimate reason to think that I know everything, but feeling that way anyways, right? And then getting slapped in the face with like reality in life, and having to come to terms with that, and also find strength in recognizing that like I don't know everything, and that's okay. Other people, have a lot to teach me, and I have a lot to learn and gain from them. And I think that that's like the core of the character, like he goes through that process of realizing like, no, like really what our strength is who we are together. And like, I need to trust people to trust that people have something to share with me, something that's going to help me.
Have your parents seen it? If they're
Yes.
missionaries, do they go, oh, you're the one sitting next to me, right?
Yeah. My parents were definitely a little bit taken aback by the content. I did prepare them going into it, but they've seen it a couple times now. And I remember after the second time they saw it, they came and saw me in Chicago, where I had originally seen the show. They came with my older sister who had brought me
She's,
originally.
she's a gateway drug there to this kind of theater thing. Kind of
Yeah, yeah.
yes, right?
Don't tell her that. She's gonna rub it in my face, as she always does. um but no, my parents have seen it a couple times, and while I know that the content isn't necessarily something that they always want to engage with, they really do truly believe it's a beautiful show, and are really proud of me for being in it and being a part of the story. So I'm eternally grateful for all of their support. I don't think it's something I ever could have expected from missionary parents, to support not only a kid going into a career in musical theater, but also doing a show like this. But they've been so supportive. Yeah.
The thing I find about this is that, and I've seen it a number of times, it is a very positive show about faith. It
Yeah.
really is. And when you see the end of it, where they're, well, I don't want to spoil anything, but
Yeah.
the ending gives you that hope that, you know what, their work has not been in vain. And indeed, that the kind of work that Mormon missionaries are doing is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think too often people get caught up in the language that's in there sometimes, the kind of irreverence that's part of it. And I think they just have to give it a chance, and I think they'd enjoy
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Absolutely. Yeah. Sorry. Go
no, go
ahead.
ahead. Sorry.
No, I mean, I say that all the time, and that's something that was explained to us from day one in rehearsals. Like, we are not making fun of anybody. That is not the goal of this piece of work. You know, like nobody's off limits. Everybody can be the butt of a joke, but we're not making fun of anybody. What's funny about this is the inherent truth of like certain situations, right?
Right.
And as Mormons, as we were rehearsing, you know, Jen was always telling us like, we're not making fun of them. They are genuinely sweet, good-natured, kind people. That is what we're playing. And it's funny in contrast to what's going on, right? And to
Right.
see that kind of fall apart because of adversity, right? But we're not making fun of them. We're not laughing at them, you know, like we're laughing, you know, as a result of the circumstances, you know, and I always appreciated that, and that's how I feel about, you know, the show's position on faith as well. You know, it's easy to feel offended by some of the brash stuff that comes out, you know, in your face, especially towards the beginning, but we're not making fun of faith. In fact, we're praising it in a lot of ways.
Have you played Orlando?
No, but we have intentions to play Orlando this coming season. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
Okay. But I mean, can you imagine the reaction you'll get there?
I'm so excited. But yeah, and also Salt Lake City is on our agenda as well.
Done deal. Done deal. Okay, my
Right?
last question. When
Yeah.
somebody yells out Sam, who responds?
Usually in the context of the situation, we can figure it out. But I always make the joke that I'm Sam 1 and Sam Nachman is Sam 3 because on our tracking sheet he's number 3. So I always,
He doesn't get to be 2?
no, Nabalungi's 2 on the sheet.
No, that's bad. That's bad.
No, it's funny. He's in on the joke as well. We think it's funny, but actually, you know, in a work environment, people refer to us, if we're close to each other, by our last names.
Oh, very good. Okay. Well, and if there ever was one of those ones where they said, "Now, Sam, we've got to make a change in this," and then you go, "Well, that's for you."
Yeah.
This
Right?
is
Hey,
your
are you
comment,
writing
right?
that down?
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
yours, right? Well, thank you so much. I'm dying to see you when you get here. So be ready for us. I'll
Yeah,
be
absolutely.
the one not looking offended.
Okay, awesome. I'll see if I can spot you.
All right. Thanks so much.
Yeah, take care.